There are moments inside the British monarchy that quietly reshape history. Moments so carefully concealed behind palace walls that by the time the public hears even a whisper, the real story may already be far bigger than anyone imagined. And according to a wave of fresh reports, insider claims, and growing speculation surrounding King Charles III, Prince William, and Meghan Markle, Buckingham Palace may now be facing one of its most explosive private reckonings in years. But what if this was never only about titles? What if this was always about trust? For years, the world has watched Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, Prince William, the future king, and King Charles III navigate a relationship that many believed had already reached its breaking point. Yet even through public interviews, media projects, memoirs, and carefully timed statements, one uncomfortable question continued to follow the House of Windsor, like a shadow that refused to disappear. Was the real conflict emotional or financial? And tonight, according to reports emerging from palace circles, that question may finally have an answer. Because what reportedly began as a routine internal financial review inside Buckingham Palace has now evolved into something far more unsettling, something insiders claim forced King Charles III and Prince William, the Prince of Wales, into a closed-door series of meetings that lasted late into the evening. Meetings so private that even senior communications staff were allegedly excluded from the first round of discussions. And when that happens inside the monarchy, it usually means one thing. Something serious has been found. But before we go further, I want to ask you something. If you discovered that someone inside your own family had been building something in secret for years, something involving money, influence, and private information, would loyalty still come first, or would truth matter more? Because according to sources close to palace finance teams, what triggered alarm bells was not one payment, not one document, not even one suspicious transaction. It was a pattern. A pattern so precise, so carefully layered, and according to some reports, so deeply connected to major royal milestones, that senior advisors reportedly stopped calling it an irregularity and started calling it a system. Now officially, none of these claims have been independently verified by the palace, and it is important to state clearly that much of what is circulating comes from reports, commentary, and unnamed insiders rather than confirmed public findings. But that has not stopped the speculation. Not even close. Because according to individuals said to be familiar with internal discussions, Prince William, the future king, was among the first senior royals shown a preliminary financial timeline. And what makes this detail particularly interesting is what allegedly happened next. Sources claim Prince William didn't react emotionally. Prince William didn't raise his voice. Prince William didn't storm out. Instead, according to insiders, Prince William, the Prince of Wales, quietly reviewed every page, closed the folder, looked directly at senior advisors, and delivered just one calm instruction. Find everything. Now, whether that exact wording is accurate remains unconfirmed. But if true, that single moment may have changed everything. Because for those who understand how the royal family, Buckingham Palace, and the future structure of succession actually work, Prince William has never been viewed merely as a public figure. Prince William is viewed as institutional continuity. Prince William is viewed as the future king. And when Prince William begins asking financial questions, people listen. But here is where the story becomes even more complicated. Because according to reports that began circulating through both British media circles and overseas commentary networks, the investigation may not have focused solely on spending. It may have focused on timing. The timing of private meetings. The timing of media stories. The timing of strategic leaks. And most controversially, the timing of financial movements allegedly linked to entities outside traditional royal oversight. Again, none of this has been publicly confirmed by Buckingham Palace, and all claims should be treated as speculation unless independently verified. But insiders claim the deeper investigators looked, the less random everything appeared, and that reportedly brought King Charles III directly into the process. Now, if there is one thing people often misunderstand about King Charles III, it is this. Behind the public smiles, ceremonial appearances, and carefully measured speeches, King Charles III is known by palace historians as someone deeply protective of institutional legitimacy. Not headlines, not popularity, legitimacy. And according to those familiar with the alleged meetings, once King Charles III reviewed the early findings, the conversation inside palace walls reportedly shifted from review to response. And that is when one name reportedly began appearing in nearly every internal conversation. Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex. Meghan Markle, the woman who once symbolized modern transformation for the monarchy, now standing at the center of one of its most sensitive internal controversies. But was Meghan Markle actually responsible for what investigators believe they found? Or is Meghan Markle becoming the public face of a much larger family fracture that has been growing for years? That question may define everything that comes next. Because according to insiders, Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, may have had absolutely no idea how serious these internal concerns had become until the first private legal briefings reportedly began crossing the Atlantic. And if that part is true, then this story is no longer simply about titles. This story becomes about marriage, about trust, about legacy, and about whether Prince Harry is standing beside Meghan Markle out of loyalty, or standing beside Meghan Markle because the consequences of walking away may already be far greater than anyone imagined. So tell me in the comments, if you were Prince Harry, would you protect your marriage or protect your family legacy? Because what happened in the next closed-door meeting reportedly changed the tone inside Buckingham Palace forever. And according to sources, the person who entered that room next was not a communications advisor, not a lawyer, and not even King Charles III. It was someone whose reputation inside royal circles is built on discipline, accountability, and absolute loyalty to the crown. And once that person opened the next file, everything reportedly escalated. What happened next, according to palace insiders, did not merely deepen the investigation surrounding King Charles III, Prince William, and Meghan Markle. What happened next reportedly transformed a private financial review into something far more dangerous, far more personal, and according to some within royal circles, far more threatening to the long-term credibility of the modern House of Windsor than anyone inside Buckingham Palace was prepared to admit in public. Because the individual who reportedly entered that closed-door meeting was not simply another advisor, another accountant, or another legal consultant brought in to review paperwork and quietly disappear into the machinery of the monarchy. According to reports, the next file was presented under the supervision of Princess and the woman many palace historians quietly describe as the monarchy's most uncompromising guardian, a royal whose reputation was built not through interviews, not through headlines, and certainly not through popularity campaigns, but through decades of discipline, institutional loyalty, and an almost surgical intolerance for anything that appears to exploit the crown for personal advantage. And according to sources familiar with the alleged meeting, when Princess and began reviewing the first complete transaction timeline connected to Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, the atmosphere inside the room reportedly changed almost immediately. Not because of one payment, not because of one contract, and not because of one unusual business structure, but because the timeline allegedly revealed something far more troubling: correlation. According to insiders, a sequence of financial movements allegedly appeared to line up with some of the most private and emotionally significant milestones involving Prince William, the future King, Catherine, Princess of Wales, King Charles III, and other senior members of the royal family, including private strategy sessions, restricted ceremonial planning, and internal family events that were never intended for public distribution. Now, it is essential to say once again that these claims remain based on reports, unnamed sources, and commentary rather than publicly released institutional findings. But if those reports are even partially accurate, then what investigators were allegedly looking at was no longer a financial irregularity. It was a possible information pattern. And that changes everything. So let me ask you something. If private family moments suddenly began appearing in media narratives with unusual precision, and if financial records seem to move at nearly the same time, would you call that coincidence, or would you start asking much harder questions? Because according to individuals said to be briefed on the findings, Princess and did exactly that. Sources claim Princess and instructed senior auditors to stop looking at individual expenses and begin reconstructing a complete event-based chronology stretching back to the earliest days of Meghan Markle's arrival inside the royal system, including engagements involving Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, media negotiations, charitable appearances, private travel coordination, and internal communications between palace departments. And as that reconstruction allegedly expanded, another name reportedly began appearing more frequently in private discussions. Prince Harry, not because insiders claim Prince Harry designed any financial structure, not because reports suggest Prince Harry orchestrated anything intentionally, but because according to palace sources, several early operational authorizations allegedly carried the signature of Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, from a period when Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were still active working members of the monarchy. And suddenly, what began as a question about money became a question about exposure. Because if those reports are accurate, then Prince Harry may not simply be emotionally connected to the controversy. Prince Harry may be legally connected to the paperwork. And according to sources close to California advisors, that possibility reportedly shook Prince Harry more than anyone outside palace walls initially understood. Insiders claim Prince Harry began privately requesting document copies, asking legal questions, and revisiting agreements that, according to some reports, Prince Harry had not personally reviewed in years. And if that is true, then for the first time in this unfolding royal drama, Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, may not be asking whether Meghan Markle was treated fairly. Prince Harry may now be asking whether Prince Harry himself fully understood what was happening all along. Now think about that for a moment. What happens when loyalty collides with documentation? What happens when marriage collides with institutional accountability? And what happens when a prince realizes that emotional decisions made years earlier may now carry financial consequences that cannot simply be explained away through interviews or public statements? Because according to insiders, while Prince Harry was reportedly processing these developments across the Atlantic, Prince William, the future king, was becoming even more involved in side palace strategy sessions. Sources claim Prince William requested direct briefings from senior communications teams, constitutional advisors, and finance officers, not because Prince William wanted revenge, not because Prince William wanted public confrontation, but because Prince William allegedly understood something deeper. If this story ever became public, the monarchy itself would become the headline. And for Prince William, the future king whose long-term mission has reportedly centered on stability, transparency, and rebuilding trust around the institution, that possibility may have been unacceptable. According to palace insiders, Prince William reportedly told advisors that public trust cannot survive selective accountability. Now, whether that exact wording is accurate remains impossible to independently verify. But if true, that statement reveals exactly how Prince William may be thinking as a future monarch. Not emotionally, structurally. And here is where the story becomes even more fascinating. Because according to reports emerging from royal observers, Catherine, Princess of Wales, also known globally as Kate Middleton, may have quietly entered the strategic conversation, not through confrontation, not through public messaging, and certainly not through leaks, but through something far more powerful. Presence. Sources claim Catherine, Princess of Wales, began expanding public scheduling flexibility, allowing palace communications teams to prepare for the possibility that Prince William and Kate Middleton might need to absorb significantly greater visibility if the controversy surrounding Meghan Markle escalated further. And if that is true, then this was no longer an isolated audit. This was succession preparation. So let me ask you this. Do you believe Prince William and Kate Middleton were preparing for damage control? Or do you believe Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, were preparing for something much bigger, something that could permanently reshape the public standing of Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, and perhaps even Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex? Because according to insiders, by the end of that week, King Charles III, Princess, and Prince William were no longer asking whether action would be necessary. The only question reportedly left inside Buckingham Palace was how far that action would go. Would the Crown issue a private warning? Would King Charles III pursue a quiet settlement? Or would Prince William, the future king, support something the monarchy rarely considers unless the institution itself feels threatened? Formal removal of remaining royal privileges. And according to reports, The next discovery inside the investigation may have made that decision far easier than anyone expected, because the next document reportedly did not contain spending records. The next document allegedly contained names. While King Charles III, Princess Anne, and Prince William were reportedly tightening control over what insiders increasingly described as a highly sensitive institutional investigation, another development was allegedly unfolding thousands of miles away in California, and according to sources familiar with both palace communications and external legal consultations, this development may have created the most emotionally devastating phase yet for Prince Harry, because for the first time since the earliest reports involving Meghan Markle began circulating, the conversation was no longer centered on media strategy, no longer centered on public image, and no longer centered on who controlled the narrative, but instead centered on something far more personal, far more dangerous, and according to some insiders, potentially life-changing for Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex himself, legal isolation. According to individuals said to be familiar with confidential advisory discussions, Prince Harry was allegedly presented with a preliminary legal exposure summary by outside advisors, and what reportedly shocked Prince Harry was not the possibility that questions might be asked, not the possibility that documents might be reviewed, and not even the possibility that public criticism could intensify. Because Prince Harry has faced criticism for years, but rather the realization that if certain financial structures, consultancy entities, and external agreements were ever formally challenged through institutional or parliamentary review, Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, not Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, might initially appear on several of the earliest operational authorizations linked to that period. Now, it is critical to emphasize that there is no public finding, no formal charge, and no official institutional conclusion suggesting wrongdoing by Prince Harry, and much of what continues to circulate remains based on reporting, insider commentary, and unverified palace sources rather than independently released evidence. Yet according to those close to the matter, what allegedly shook Prince Harry was not guilt. It was vulnerability. Because according to multiple reports, several of Meghan Markle's broader corporate interests, investment pathways, and privately structured ventures may have been arranged through legal frameworks that allegedly place layers of separation between ownership, operational liability, and personal exposure, while some of the earliest royal-era authorizations connected to travel, event structures, consultancy interactions, and institutional access allegedly carry documentation tied more directly to Prince Harry's position as a working royal during that period. And if that reporting proves accurate, then for the first time in this extraordinary royal drama, Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, may be confronting a possibility few people ever imagined. What if Prince Harry was never fully in control of the structure unfolding around Meghan Markle? And what if Prince Harry is only now discovering just how complicated that structure may have become? So let me ask you something. If you spend years defending the person you loved, if you challenged your family, changed your country, redefined your public identity, and walked away from the institution that shaped your entire life, only to later discover that critical financial decisions may have been made through systems you never fully understood, what would hurt more, public embarrassment or private betrayal? Because according to insiders close to California advisory circles, Prince Harry allegedly began spending longer hours reviewing archived agreements, old emails, vendor approvals, production timelines, and contractual frameworks connected to the earliest post-royal commercial transitions. And according to one individual said to be familiar with those reviews, Prince Harry reportedly became increasingly quiet, increasingly withdrawn, and increasingly focused on one uncomfortable question: what exactly was built and when? Meanwhile, back inside Buckingham Palace, the investigation reportedly continued moving with extraordinary precision, and according to sources, Princess Anne allegedly expanded the review beyond financial flows alone, ordering forensic cross-referencing between internal scheduling archives, media release windows, travel records, strategic communication drafts, and third-party correspondence connected to periods involving Prince William, the future king, Catherine, Princess of Wales, King Charles III, and other senior members of the royal family. And according to those reports, what investigators allegedly found next may have been even more disturbing than the payments themselves. Timing. Not just one example. Not just one coincidence, but a repeated pattern in which private institutional activity allegedly appeared to be followed by unusually precise public narratives, commercial commentary, or media positioning emerging through channels connected to organizations, production groups, or entertainment interests that reportedly intersected with broader networks linked to Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex. Again, none of these claims have been publicly verified by Buckingham Palace, and all allegations remain speculative unless independently confirmed. But according to insiders, this was the moment Princess and allegedly stopped viewing the situation as an administrative concern and started viewing it as institutional defense. Now, if there is one person inside modern royal history whose reputation is built on protecting the crown above personality, above popularity, and above emotional discomfort, it is Princess Anne. And according to individuals said to be present during one of the later briefings, Princess Anne allegedly reviewed the updated timeline, closed the folder, and instructed legal advisors to prepare for escalation. Not publicity, escalation. And that single word reportedly changed the mood across every department involved. Because inside the monarchy, escalation does not mean press management. Escalation means constitutional preparation. And if you understand how King Charles III, Prince William, and the institutional machinery of the monarchy operate, you already know what that could mean. Formal recommendations, restricted privileges, institutional distancing, potential title review, and perhaps something even bigger. So let me ask you, do you believe King Charles III would ever allow personal family loyalty to override institutional accountability? Or do you believe King Charles III, as monarch, would choose the crown even if that decision affected Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, and the global image of the House of Windsor itself? Because according to palace sources, by the time Prince William, the Prince of Wales, received the next consolidated briefing, the conversation had reportedly moved far beyond internal containment. Sources claim Prince William was now preparing for external consequences, media reaction, public trust, Commonwealth perception, succession optics, and perhaps most importantly, what happens when the future king is forced to publicly represent stability while members of his own extended family become the center of controversy. According to insiders, Prince William reportedly met privately with senior communications advisors, constitutional strategists, and visibility coordinators linked to Catherine, Princess of Wales, also known worldwide as Kate Middleton, not because Prince William wanted a media war, and not because Prince William sought public revenge, but because Prince William allegedly understood that if the crown moved decisively against Meghan Markle, the public would not simply watch the scandal. The public would watch the future king. And according to individuals close to those discussions, Kate Middleton, the Princess of Wales quietly expanded scheduling flexibility, signaling readiness for increased visibility should public reassurance become necessary. And if that is true, then Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, may not simply be responding to a controversy. Prince William and Kate Middleton may already be preparing for a new phase of royal leadership. But here is where everything reportedly takes another extraordinary turn. Because according to individuals close to the investigation, the next file allegedly presented to King Charles III did not focus on payments, did not focus on signatures, and did not focus on public leaks. The next file allegedly focused on beneficiaries, and according to insiders, the names inside that file may have changed the entire direction of the monarchy's final response. By the time that next confidential file was reportedly placed in front of King Charles III, Prince William, Princess Anne, and a small circle of senior institutional advisors inside Buckingham Palace. According to palace insiders, the investigation surrounding Meghan Markle, Prince Harry, and the broader integrity of the modern House of Windsor had allegedly entered an entirely different phase, because what investigators were now reviewing was no longer centered on unexplained payments. No. Longer centered on irregular contractual pathways, and no longer centered solely on internal leaks or suspicious timing, but rather on the final and perhaps most sensitive question of all: who ultimately benefited from the structure that had allegedly been quietly built behind the scenes. According to individuals said to be familiar with the alleged findings, the beneficiary review reportedly connected multiple legal entities, layered financial structures, and private holding mechanisms to a series of arrangements that investigators believed had been intentionally designed to separate visibility from ownership, exposure from control, and public identity from operational accountability. And according to those same insiders, what made this phase especially unsettling for King Charles III, Prince William, the future king and princess, and was not merely the complexity of the structures themselves, but the possibility that certain long-term assets, equity interests, and commercial positions may have been positioned in ways that significantly reduced direct exposure for Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, while increasing institutional and documentary exposure for Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, whose name allegedly appeared on several early operational approvals tied to the transition period. Now, once again, no official public finding has independently confirmed these allegations, and much of what continues circulating comes from insider reports, leaked commentary, and unverified sources rather than formal institutional disclosure. But according to individuals close to the review, what allegedly shocked King Charles III most was not the legal sophistication of the structures. It was the strategic patience behind them. Because according to insiders, investigators allegedly reconstructed a timeline stretching back years, revealing that certain consultancy pathways, private registration structures, and external entertainment relationships did not appear to emerge suddenly after Meghan Markle and Prince Harry stepped away from senior royal duties, but may instead have been quietly forming while Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, and Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, were still publicly representing the crown. And if even part of that timeline proves accurate, then this story is no longer simply about post-royal independence. This story becomes about preparation, planning, positioning, and perhaps something even more controversial, premeditated separation. So let me ask you something. If someone began building a private future while still publicly benefiting from institutional trust, would you call that ambition or would you call that strategy? Because according to palace sources, that exact possibility reportedly forced Prince William, the future king, to reevaluate not just the controversy itself, but what the controversy might mean for the monarchy's next generation of leadership. Sources claim Prince William requested a second round of strategic briefings involving constitutional advisors, communications specialists, finance officers, and senior staff connected to Catherine, Princess of Wales, also known globally as Kate Middleton. And according to insiders, the purpose of those meetings was no longer simply understanding the investigation. The purpose was preparing for the aftermath, public confidence, international headlines, Commonwealth reaction, succession optics, institutional continuity. And according to individuals close to those briefings, Prince William reportedly made one concern absolutely clear. If the crown acted, the crown could not appear emotional. The crown had to appear inevitable. And if that report is accurate, then it reveals something fascinating about Prince William, the Prince of Wales, because while critics often frame Prince William through the lens of family tension, insiders increasingly describe Prince William as something much more consequential, a monarch in preparation. And that matters, because according to palace observers, Prince William was not the only senior royal adjusting to what was unfolding. Sources claim Kate Middleton, Catherine, Princess of Wales, quietly expanded upcoming visibility options, coordinated flexibility across public engagements, and instructed senior communications teams to prepare for increased institutional representation if public confidence required visible reassurance from the next generation of royal leadership. And if that is true, then Prince William and Kate Middleton were not simply reacting to a scandal. Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, may already have been preparing to stabilize the monarchy after it. Now think about that for a moment. If Prince William, the future king, and Kate Middleton, the Princess of Wales, were already preparing for institutional recovery, what exactly had they seen in those files? Because according to insiders, the next briefing allegedly shifted attention away from Meghan Markle entirely and toward Prince Harry, not as a strategist, not as an architect, but as a liability. Sources claim legal advisors allegedly presented King Charles III, Princess, and Prince William with a risk matrix evaluating potential exposure should any parliamentary, civil, or constitutional review ever move beyond internal audit. And according to those same reports, Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, reportedly appeared in what one insider described as the most vulnerable legal position of anyone connected to the broader controversy. Why? Because according to those reports, while ownership structures may have been layered through multiple entities, beneficiaries, and protective frameworks, several early authorizations tied to institutional access, logistical coordination, and operational approvals allegedly remained connected to Prince Harry's role as an active senior royal at the time. And if that reporting proves accurate, then Prince Harry may be facing something more painful than public criticism. Prince Harry may be facing realization that love does not automatically protect against liability, realization that loyalty does not erase documentation, and realization that stepping away from the monarchy may have created freedom, but not immunity. So let me ask you, if you were Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, and you discovered that the legal weight of years-old decisions might fall on your shoulders while others remained structurally protected, would you keep defending the person you love? Or would you start asking questions nobody wants answered? Because according to California-based insiders, that may be exactly what began happening. Sources claim Prince Harry allegedly started requesting archived agreements, private correspondence, advisory memos, production timelines, and historical authorizations connected to early post-royal ventures, and according to one individual said to be familiar with those reviews, Prince Harry reportedly stopped asking how to defend the narrative and started asking how the structure was built. And while Prince Harry was allegedly confronting that deeply personal shift across the Atlantic, King Charles III was reportedly facing a very different question back in London. Not whether action was necessary, but whether action could be delayed. According to palace insiders, King Charles III allegedly received a constitutional summary outlining possible responses available to the crown, ranging from private corrective measures and internal distancing protocols, all the way to formal removal of remaining privileges associated with former working royal status. And according to individuals close to the discussions, once King Charles III reviewed that summary, the room reportedly fell completely silent, because for the first time, what had begun as a discreet audit had now reached the threshold of royal consequence. And according to those same insiders, Princess and allegedly broke that silence with a statement so direct that several advisors reportedly stopped taking notes. The institution survives only when accountability survives. Now, whether those exact words were used remains unverified, but if the sentiment was real, then everything may have changed in that moment. Because according to palace sources, by the end of that evening, King Charles III, Prince William, the future king, and princess and were no longer debating whether the crown should act. They were reportedly debating how public the final action would become. And what happened during the next morning's briefing may have pushed that decision beyond the point of no return. By the morning that final briefing reportedly began inside Buckingham Palace, according to palace insiders, the atmosphere surrounding King Charles III, Prince William, Princess, and Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had allegedly changed in a way that even veteran royal staff had rarely witnessed, because what had started as a quiet internal audit, what had evolved into a confidential financial review, and what had expanded into a multi-layered institutional investigation, had now reportedly reached its final stage, a stage that palace advisors privately described not as analysis, not as inquiry, and certainly not as family mediation, but as royal reckoning. According to individuals said to be familiar with that final meeting, King Charles III entered the room carrying what insiders described as a consolidated institutional summary, a document allegedly built through weeks of financial cross-referencing, legal reconstruction, communications review, archival correspondence analysis, and beneficiary mapping supervised by Princess and reviewed by senior finance officers and strategically monitored by Prince William, the future king, who's growing. Involvement had transformed what many initially believed would remain a private family concern into something far larger, far more constitutional, and according to some observers, far more defining for the next generation of royal leadership. And according to sources, once King Charles III reviewed the final conclusions, one uncomfortable reality reportedly became impossible for anyone inside Buckingham Palace to ignore. This was never simply about Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex. This was never simply about Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex. And this was never simply about titles. This was about institutional survival. So let me ask you something. If your family name represented more than personal identity, more than inheritance, and more than public fame, if your family name represented 1,000 years of constitutional continuity, diplomatic credibility, public trust, and global symbolism, how far would you go to protect it? Because according to insiders, that exact question reportedly shaped everything King Charles III said during the final phase of deliberation. Sources claim King Charles III reminded those present that the monarchy does not survive because individuals are loved. The monarchy survives because standards are enforced. Now, whether those exact words were spoken remains impossible to independently verify. But according to individuals close to the discussions, the meaning was unmistakable. No one stands above the crown. Not a prince, not a duchess, not even family. And if that reporting proves accurate, then what happened next may become one of the defining institutional moments of King Charles III's reign. Because according to palace sources, after the final review concluded, Princess and allegedly presented a recommendation matrix outlining possible actions available to the crown, ranging from quiet administrative distancing and internal privilege restrictions, all the way to formal removal of remaining honorary associations connected to former working royal status. And according to those same insiders, Prince William, the future king, reportedly supported the option that placed institutional clarity above personal discomfort. Not revenge, not retaliation, clarity. And that matters, because according to people familiar with Prince William's thinking, Prince William allegedly understood that as the future king, any appearance of selective accountability would not weaken Meghan Markle. It would weaken the monarchy itself. And if Prince William, the Prince of Wales, truly took that position, then what we may be witnessing is not merely a family dispute. We may be witnessing the first unmistakable sign of how Prince William intends to rule. Firmly, quietly, structurally. But here is where the emotional center of this story becomes impossible to ignore. Because according to California-based insiders, while King Charles III, Princess, and Prince William were allegedly preparing for institutional action, Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, may have been confronting the most difficult private realization of his life. Sources claim Prince Harry allegedly learned that if any external review ever moved beyond palace oversight, several early operational signatures, institutional approvals, and transition-era authorizations could place Prince Harry in a far more exposed position than Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, whose broader structures allegedly appeared shielded through layered ownership pathways and protective legal separation. Now no official institution has publicly confirmed those details, and no public finding has accused Prince Harry of misconduct. But according to insiders, for Prince Harry, the realization may not be legal. The realization may be personal. Because according to individuals close to advisory circles, Prince Harry reportedly stopped asking how to defend Meghan Markle and started asking how so much could have happened without Prince Harry fully seeing it. Now think about that for a moment. If you spent years defending a marriage, challenging your family, changing your identity, crossing an ocean, building an entirely new life, only to discover that the paperwork, the exposure, and the consequences may not be evenly shared, what would you do? Would you protect love or protect survival? Because according to insiders, that question may now define everything Prince Harry does next. And while Prince Harry reportedly faced that internal storm across the Atlantic, another quiet development was allegedly unfolding in London. Sources claim Catherine, Princess of Wales, also known worldwide as Kate Middleton, quietly expanded flexibility across future public scheduling, allowing Prince William and Kate Middleton to absorb greater institutional visibility if public reassurance became necessary. And according to palace observers, that move was interpreted not as damage control, but as transition readiness. And if that interpretation is accurate, then Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, may already be preparing not just to inherit the monarchy, but to rebuild public trust around it. Now here is the question nobody inside palace walls may be able to avoid much longer. If King Charles III acts, if Prince William, the future king, supports that action? And if princess and continues pushing for accountability, where does that leave Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex? According to insiders, Meghan Markle has remained strategically silent while advisors allegedly debate whether any public response would calm the narrative or intensify it. Because according to those close to the matter, once institutional documentation begins speaking, public relations often stop working. And that may be the most powerful shift of all. For years, the world watched interviews. For years, the world watched documentaries. For years, the world watched memoirs. But now, according to palace sources, the crown may be preparing to let documents speak louder than emotion. And if that happens, everything changes. So now I want to ask you directly, do you believe King Charles III should protect family at any cost? Or do you believe Prince William, the future king, is right to protect the monarchy first? Let us know in the comments, because this conversation is far from over, and what happens next between Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, Prince William, Kate Middleton, King Charles III, and the future of the royal family may shape the House of Windsor for decades to come. If you enjoyed this deep investigation into the hidden power struggles, palace secrets, royal drama, succession tensions, and the future of the monarchy, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with us for the next chapter, because in the world of Buckingham Palace, the biggest stories rarely begin with headlines. They begin behind closed doors.